Welcome to New Horizons. I'm Suzanne Barnett, your host, and tonight we are featuring the 18th annual popular and prestigious Palo Alto Clay and Glass Festival. It is going to be held on July 10th and 11th at the Palo Alto Art Center in Palo Alto. But the best part is tonight because I have three fabulous, darling, talented artists, and we're going to start. Well, I welcome all of you. April, let's start with you. You were on the show. It's April Zilber. How about that?
Very good.
And I'm so glad you're on the show. You were on the show last year. So tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm an artist. I used to be a scientist. I've been a gardener for many years, and you see in my work that I love plants. I have tree, flower image, giant kelp. The kelp thing came about because after about 5 years of doing trees, I thought, I need something new to sink my teeth into. So last year for Halloween, I did a kelp costume. Actually, it was 2 years ago. And then I embellished it last year. And the process of learning enough about kelp to be able to make the costume really look like kelp when I was moving, wearing it, allowed me to absorb the imagery enough that I could then reproduce it in my glass work. So, for example, this piece is a kelp design that I've drawn and cut in copper. Then I've taken that piece of metal and sandwiched it between 2 layers of glass. I fused it in the kiln flat, and then I laid it on top of a mold and let it slump to take the curve. So it's a candle screen, you put a candle behind it, and the light would put a pattern on the table if it was dark in the studio, but can't see that right here.
But April, isn't glass making really difficult?
It's not that difficult. There are technical things, and you do sometimes need some help to learn how to do things correctly, but it's not that hard.
Well, how long have you been a glass artist?
Since 1992. It's a long time.
And first of all, this show coming up in July 10th and 11th, it's a juried show, so it's very difficult to get into, isn't it?
All of the people who show their art have been juried in as members of the association. So it's a pretty rigorous jurying process.
Tell about the association so everybody knows about that.
ACGA, the Association of Clay and Glass Artists of California, formed way back in 1945, and this is our 65th year now, and it's our 18th annual Palo Alto Clay and Glass Festival, which has been just increasing in popularity as time goes on. You'll find artists who've been with the association for many years, and you'll find new artists every year as well. We also encourage the public to find out about working with clay. It's a little harder to do glass for the public, but we do have Clay for All, where you can get your hands dirty and make something and take it home. It's for kids and grown-ups. We have this year a special event for the SURF, that's the Craft Emergency Relief Fund. So we've asked our artists to make special 25th anniversary commemorative pieces to sell at the SURF booth at the show. So people can come and look at that and support this really fine organization. What else can I say about the show?
What I always ask, especially artists, this question: what turns you on about doing your art? I can't wait to ask Bob. April?
Well, I think it's something about suddenly having a seed of an idea, a little spark, a glimmer, and it's just in your mind at that point. And I start to dwell on it a little bit, and I start to try to visualize it just in my mind enough so that I can finally get it onto paper. And I'll just do a scribble. I mean, I don't spend hours designing it usually. I'll just do a scribble. And then I'll think about it some more. So what's really special is once you have this inner picture in your mind, to be able to actually create it. And then there's two things that are special about that. One is it may come out just like what you imagined, which is rewarding because it means you've mastered the techniques that you needed. The other thing is that it may come out differently, and you may have learned something along the way that, aha, that wasn't what I was aiming at, but look what happened, and now I know how to get this effect on purpose. So that's kind of one of my favorite things about art, is that when you make mistakes in art, they can turn into really wonderful discoveries, even though at first you might be disappointed, but you never know. Somebody at the show might say, that is a fabulous piece, and you'd be like, oh, thank you. So,
thank you so much. We'll get back to you. And now I'd like to introduce Bob Poole. And Bob, I had not met you before. I hadn't met you or Lynn, but you have to tell your story. It is so hot. Come on.
It's hot in here.
That's true.
Well, I was originally a marine biologist, trained at that, and did that for about 14 years, and took a clay class just on someone's suggestion, something to do on the weekend. And I walked into the clay studio, and the first day just touched the clay, and it was like, I just felt captivated. It was sort of sex, drugs, rock and roll all at once. And it was a beginner's class, and by the end of the class they were saying, gee, would you like to teach beginners? I was throwing big pieces, and it felt, to me it felt as if some kind of ancient potter had come into me and taken me over, really. I'd never had an art class, and there was this thing inside of me which was revealed to me, and that was actually 30 years ago.
And you just gave up your other profession.
That's correct. After a year or two, I just found myself, instead of in the lab, I was always at the studio looking at my watch. I need to get back to the lab, or rather to the studio, and I just said, you know, there's a message here. Mm-hmm. And people were saying, oh, you make such beautiful things, Bob, and I thought, okay, I'd rather starve as a potter than be rich as a bored scientist, so, here I am today.
Well, these are, tell about that
this is
piece.
the work that I do, these pieces here, and the plate in the background. As a former biologist, I'm very interested in biology, so most of my work has a biological theme. This piece is a flower, a full bloom pattern, I call it. The large bowl in the front is a plankton net having caught little golden creatures. And this is obviously just a spray of flowers across a serving plate. And yeah, that's.
But weren't you in the Orient for a while? I mean, you're a big mucky muck with. Tell about that.
Well, I have been attending wood-fired pottery festivals in Japan, China, and Korea, and have been interacting with a very interesting group of potters in all three countries, and we get together a few times a year and exchange ideas and become basically influenced and with each other, and it influences our work, and you see how other potters in other parts of the country, other parts of the world are so much like me or like us, and yet so different. And it's basically a mutual growth situation, and very, very wonderful. And from that, I've had, my work has been very popular there and taken into museums. And we, last year in China, founded the International Ceramic Artists Association of ceramic artists from Europe and Asia and the New World got together. And so I enjoy it there, yes, it's very fun. They have a very high value for ceramics in their culture, so it's kind of fun to go and be immersed in clay there.
May I ask you the same question I asked April? Mm-hmm. How do you get your ideas? What happens when you get this idea that you...
Right.
Yeah. How does it come to you?
It's similar to April's, really, and I think that's part of our scientific training. I am kind of, in leaving science, kind of rejected the sort of empirical, deductive thing of asking questions and looking for answers. For me, I feel that my work is very intuitive, comes from inside of me, and I get some kind of a concept of what I want to create, or a feeling that comes out, and then I try to realize it. I like clay because you start with just an amorphous mass. Most of my work is made on the wheel. An amorphous mass of clay that, by spinning the wheel and working with your hands, you can turn into something like this bowl. And then you put it in the fire, and it doesn't look at anything like that before the firing, but with the power of the fire, it's transformed. And the scientific part is, as April said also, as a scientist, you're taught to observe things happening, things not happening, new things happening, and you ask, gee, that's interesting. I wonder why that happened, or I hadn't expected that. And that is also part of my process. I'll see something happen, and I say, wow, you know, that's interesting, and pursue that. And often those are the most beautiful things, or the most interesting things, are those accidental discoveries.
Of course, there's no such thing as accident. It's an opportunity to do something else, right?
That's right.
And we have to keep that in mind as artists.
Always. I view all of my work as little sketches. Each piece is something that I just capture, make, and it has a life of its own, and contributes in some way.
Yeah. Well, I'm very honored to have you all on. And now, thank you so much, Bob. And I have to tell the audience that I never miss that show. And since I'm an addicted shopper, I mean, can you imagine what I collect? Gorgeous. Lynn Wood, welcome.
Thank you.
You have been not only a member of the associations, but you have displayed your work for 18 years at this festival.
That's
Tell about
right.
that.
Yes, my first show with the association was the very first show in Palo Alto, and it had moved from a different location, and so there were only 50 people exhibiting that first year. It was all indoors, and it was one day. And now, after 18 years, there are over 180 of us, and often there's a waiting list, and it's 2 days, and sometimes we have special Friday night events. So it has blossomed and has really become much bigger and much more exciting than even that first year was exciting for me, because it was my first show.
Well, it's, to me, that show is like going to a museum and being able to purchase all these different things. You're going to do a demo for us.
I am.
Would you like to do that for us now?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Okay, so off you go.
I'm going to demonstrate making a cup today. I have a few examples here of the finished cups, and then here is a cup in process. All of my work is known as hand building. I don't even use a wheel when I'm working. So I have started with a blank of clay that was this size and rolled it out to the rough shape that I'm going to need. This is my template for my cup, and this is just about what I need. And I use a lot of texture in my work, and I'll use just about anything for texture. But today I'm going to use these mats, and these are mats that I came up with a couple of years ago because I found that there weren't things that suited what I needed. So I place my slab of clay over the top of the mats, and then I'm going to impress the texture into the clay. Rolling in a couple of directions to make sure that I really got the texture on there. Peel this away. So now I have the rough shape that I'm going to need. And then I'm going to cut out my cup. I cut my top and my bottom flush. And on the ends where I'm going to join, I'm going to bevel it so that I make a nice seam that's not too bulky. Now I have the size that I need. And I'm going to roll it around this tube to make it into my cylinder. I'm working with really soft clay, so I am able to just wet this a bit to join it. Typically with clay we do something that's called scoring and slipping, but I don't need to do that here because of how soft my clay is. So here's my seam. I've just kind of tapped it into place. Holding this in the air, I'm going to firm up my seam. I don't want to do it on the table because I'll put pressure on the other side of my cup. Wiggle this out of place here. Next, I'm going to need to attach a base, which I have also pre-cut. put on a little water here to attach it to its base. And normally when I'm working at home like this, I have about 5 or 6 of these that I'm doing at a time. It's more efficient, but for today's purposes, we're doing 1 cup. So I would typically wait about 10 or 15 minutes for the seam to become secure. I'm not going to make you wait that long. So here I'm going to cut this flush. And once I have that cut, I peel away my extra clay. Trying not to handle the cup too much. Secure my seam. And smooth it out. We don't want any rough bits to scratch up your table. And I have prepared some handles ahead of time here that are rolled out into these snake-like forms that are called coils. Here I do need to slip and score, so I have a serrated tool that I'll use. But first I need to decide where this is going to go. Generally I put them on the seam here. So I'm marking where they go. And you do need to slip and score here because the handle and the cup are going to dry at different rates. And you really want them to become homogeneous. So I've marked over here on the cup as well, and I'm securing it on the inside. I put slip in both places. I've done hundreds, if not thousands of these, so I'm eyeballing this. If you were new at this, you'd probably want to measure how long a handle you want. It might take a little bit more time, so I'm wiggling this into place, pressing on the inside as well. We don't want the handle to come off when you're drinking your first cup of coffee from this cup. Cleaning up the seam. I would let this set up for a bit, and then you go back and you want to smooth out this top. You might notice that on this and those on the front table there have a rounded edge because you want to consider one's mouth touching that edge. And there's today's cup.
Bravo. Okay, I'm going to ask you, Lynn, the same question as that I'm going to ask Bob and April. To me, it would be, I guess I'm so compulsive. I want instant art. That's why I could paint my shoes, the car, whatever. Instant. But you all have to put it in the kiln and wait. Mm-hmm. How do you stand that?
Well, actually, it's more than standing it. It's a little bit like Christmas or your birthday when you open the kiln. And some birthdays are better than others, and that's true when you open the kilns, too. But it's very exciting. I am often testing glazes and testing new forms, and I like to put those in the top of the kiln so I can see them as soon as I open the kiln up and peek right away. So I don't mind that waiting part.
So to be a clay artist and a glass artist, you have to have infinite patience, right? Do you? I mean, how do you stand the wait? Aren't you dying to see the finished product?
It's not that long of a wait. I mean, for my firing, it's typically overnight, and the next day when the kiln's cool enough, I can take a look.
What about you, Bob?
For me, it's 3 days. It feels, I wait. I know things are happening inside, and it is like Lynn says, you open it up and it's like, wow, or whoa.
And what if you have disasters, cracks, and you have to do it over again, right?
Yeah, but this whole process of what we do is a journey. It's not always about the stuff. We make things and we sell things and we enjoy things, certainly, but it's the journey of learning more of what the material can do. I don't think I'll ever grow tired of trying to explore more. So what you have now is great, but you don't know what that's going to lead to next, and that's why it's so wonderful to keep going.
How did you get started with your art?
Well, when I was in high school, there was a potter's wheel in the art class, and I was allowed to make one pot one day on the wheel. And so I was really hungry for it by the time I got to college. And in college, I was an elementary education major initially, but I arranged my entire schedule of classes around the hours that the studio was open and spent every extra hour in the pottery studio. And it just grew and grew and grew and took over in my life, I'm happy to say.
Obviously. Now, how do you come up with your ideas, Lynn?
Oh, my ideas come from just about everywhere. I am a person that's often doodling and sketching, and I can't draw out an idea in detail. As April said, she'll just do a rough sketch. If I do a complete detailed drawing, I'm kind of done with the idea. So I will have a rough idea in my mind, and then I will work it out. I'll work in a series. Some of the ideas work, and some of the ideas don't, but they lead you to other places.
Yeah, like there are no mistakes in art, really, because it does give you impetus to do something else with it, right? But now, how did you make those, Lynn?
Well, I happen to be a Gemini, I want to mention. So some people might say I'm versatile, and other people might say I'm a little schizophrenic.
Yeah.
So I have two bodies of work. The one body of work with the colored things here is my functional work. I do plates and cups and bowls and vases and things. And then I have this other body of work that I call my textured series. And I consider those to be three-dimensional collages. They start from a basic form, but off to the side I have a lot of things that I've textured, and I work very intuitively when I do those. Even if I have two that start out from the same basic shape, no two are ever alike.
Well, that's the artistic genius that you all have. I mean, and what I have interviewed a lot of artists, you know, in the last number of years, and every artist, you know, I shouldn't say this, I'm generalizing, but this is my opinion and experience, that there is a passion that you really have to have, whatever it is, right?
Yes.
How do you keep the passion going, Bob?
It just goes, really. It just
Really?
keeps going, yeah. People are, I find it helps if people like your work and comment on it. Sometimes it gets boring, but I think, you know, it's just something, you know, it's like a long marriage, you know, a happy marriage. Things come out, you realize, wow, you know, this person I'm with, you see something new, and it rekindles your feelings. And I was struck by something you just said when the two of you commenting in terms of there being mistakes or not. I find it fun in interacting with people who come to my booth or come to my studio and to discover the things that I thought were the failures, you know, that I don't like blue, and I was getting a lot of blue one time, and suddenly I realized, well, who am I to judge? Everyone loves blue. It's the most popular ceramic color. And all my customers are saying, oh, we love blue. And suddenly I thought, yeah, I make the work, but who am I to judge what's the most beautiful? So it's that interaction is also kind of inspiring with people to see parts of your work that you never noticed, or to be reassured about directions you're going.
I have another question. April, when you have your artwork and someone buys your favorite piece, how can you give it up?
You know, when I was a beginning artist, that was a little difficult. The best thing is if I've already photographed the work, then I know I have a record of it. But also, knowing that I'm going to continue to make new pieces, I can't keep everything shut up in my studio in storage. Pretty soon it would be full and I wouldn't be able to turn around. So it's actually really nice to see the pieces go out in the world and know that they're going to live in somebody's window or on somebody's wall or table. And every time they look at it, they're going to, you know, breathe in some oxygen, you know, thinking about trees. Or it just, it's heartening to see one's work go out into the world. And you, after some practice, you don't need to be attached to all the work.
It's all our ego, isn't it?
Really.
If we can, you know, say, I can do this again, or it really, you know, to be able to give it up.
When I'm starting in a new direction and I put out the new pieces for the first time at a show, and people respond to those, it excites me tremendously because it tells me that I'm going in the right direction for that moment. I also love it when people buy pieces and they come back the following year and they tell me, oh, that vase that I got from you, you know, I keep it here and I'm always putting flowers in it. There's a relationship there that forms with the customers at times. And I think it's as rewarding for the artist and the customers.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not like going into a store and just picking something off the rack. It has a very different feeling.
Well, to talk about the show again is that because I've experienced it for several years, I really have to say it's just like a museum. I mean, not everything is going to appeal to me, but the pieces that you all do are just so, you all are fabulous artists. And I'm really very honored to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks
so
very
again,
much.
let's give the show a plug. Who wants to do that?
Oh, I'll do that.
Okay.
One of the things that's special about this particular show is that we have a members exhibit. And so we have a setup that is very much like a gallery or a museum, where each artist that participates is welcome to put one of their very special pieces. And a lot of folks will go to that exhibit at the beginning of the show, and that will help them determine where they want to go throughout the show because it is so large.
Guess what? We have run out of time. Have you enjoyed yourselves?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
As
absolutely.
much as I have? You're not nervous? I'm the one that's a wreck. Anyway, I thank you so much. I wish you all the best. I will see you at the show on July 10th and 11th. And of course, we couldn't do our show without our fabulous crew. We have the crew of the world. Right, Jim? And of course, very importantly, I want to thank our audience for watching, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye.